Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the appendicular skeleton. So we made it through the axial skeleton, and next we're going to be going into the appendicular skeleton. For this video, we're going to be going into the upper appendages plus the scapula. Now, by appendicular skeleton, we've already established in the axial skeleton video, but appendicular means appendages. So all the appendages plus their attachment points, so the pelvis and the scapula here. Alright, so before we go on, we're going to be moving extremely fast. It's important that we get the skeleton down before we move on to ligaments, muscles, and all the other systems because they make things that much easier as a foundation for us, especially for the ligaments. Alright, now for the scapula, we will start off with the borders. Remember, this is the left scapula because we have this area where the ball joint of the humerus attaches, and this is the right. So this is the same scapula. Sorry. So this would be a right scapula. We have the anterior and posterior view. Now, starting from superior to inferior, left to right, we have the coracoid process, which is also right here, the coracoid process. And that's the smaller of these two protuberances. So first we have the coracoid process, and over here we have the acromion, which is another kind of process, but we only call it the acromion. Remember over here, half a foramen, since it's on the scapula, we call it the scapular notch. And we have next the glenoid cavity. So this is where the humerus attaches, the glenoid cavity over here. You can kind of see where it kind of surrounds. It may surround, or it might surround the ball or the head of the humerus, which we'll be getting into. Next we have the subscapular fossa. And this is the anterior part, so you'll be facing this guy head on. This is the right. So this entire thing is a fossa. Remember, fossa means a bowl. So this kind of looks like a bowl shape. It kind of has a bow to it, if you will. Now let's get into the borders. We have over here, since this is anterior, then this would be lateral, this would be medial. So we have the lateral border over here. We have the medial border over here, and then we have the superior border here. It's not listed here, but we would call it a superior border and no inferior border. Now we have the inferior angle, since that's kind of a point, so we have angle right here, and then conversely the superior angle because the angle is over here. All right, now we're looking anterior or posteriorly. We have the acromion again, and we can see the glenoid cavity better over here. That's kind of a glenoid fossa, we can also call that. This would be the spine of the scapula. And above the spine, remember our anatomical directions, we have supraspinous fossa, so above the spine and a bowl. So a bowl above the spine, and then conversely, we have the infraspinous fossa. So here we have the infraspinous fossa, a little bowl shape over here. It's a very thin bony area. And that's it for the scapula. I might not have said some things, but most of what I said here is what you're going to be tested on in an introductory class. So like the tubercle is not very important, not until you get into the more advanced classes, but the tubercles are part of already coracoid processes, so we can just like name them as per the coracoid process, and we don't need to go like supraglenoid, whatever ligament, just so you know. All right, next is go to the humerus. So starting superiorly to inferiorly, we have number one, the head of the humerus, obviously. Then we have, let's just go over the simple parts here, the head, the shaft, the head and the shaft, the neck over here. But we have two necks here. And number one, we have the head, and then we have the anatomical neck, which kind of cuts through the visible kind of head of the humerus. And then the surgical neck is just right here. Now we have tubercles here. Right here we have the greater tubercle. You can see it's kind of a little bit larger than the medial tubercle here, which is the lesser tubercle. And then we have a groove form here, and we call this an intertubercular sulcus or groove. Most classes just call it the sulcus, so intertubercular sulcus. And then moving down more inferior, we have the deltoid tuberosity. Now, deltoid tuberosity, you can kind of imply that attaches to the deltoid muscle. So we have the deltoid come down through here and attach right there. So we can kind of go like that. Now, we probably don't need to know this, but it's all fair game, like I said. This is the same humerus. Now, moving down more inferiorly again, on the anterior view, we have the radial fossa. You can kind of see it's a bowl shape over here. And then we have the coronoid fossa, which is slightly larger. And that's where the ulna will articulate into. And then over here we have the medial epicondyle, epi meaning above and condyle meaning cartilage, so this articulating region of the ulna and radius. So medial epicondyle, since it's facing medially, this would be a right humerus because it's the anterior aspect, and the deltoid always faces laterally. Deltoid process. And then over here on the same bone, the humerus, we have the lateral epicondyle because it faces laterally. And then this is a posterior view. And now over here, where the articulating part of the humerus is, we have number one, the capitulum, which is smaller, and then we have the trochlea. This is a pretty bad model, but if you take out a model, you can see that there's a little pulley shape where the trochlea is, and then right next there's kind of a smaller part more laterally, and that would be the capitulum. And this is the head of the radius. Right here. We'll get into that. All right, now posteriorly, we have the olecranon fossa, which is the largest fossa on the distal aspect of the humerus over here, and that's where the olecranon process of the ulna articulates into or goes into, and that's how you get locking joints. And if you go anywhere past that, you're going to be in a world of pain because you're going to snap it. You're going to snap the olecranon process. All right, and just let you pause the video here to kind of write everything down, make your Quizlets or whatever. All right, now the radius and ulnar composes the forearm. Now let's start off left to right, and over here we have the head of the radius. It kind of looks like a one of those little stamps you had when you were a kid, right? Those little cheap stamps, those stars. And then it's kind of circular at the top. The head of the radius. Then we have the body of the radius. And this is a very simplified view, but I will try to include where I see fit. And over here we have the radial tuberosity, because it's kind of like a raised projection here, but not exactly like a protuberance. And then down here we have the styloid process of the radius. And the styloid process of the radius will always be facing laterally. Okay. Now going to the ulna, we have the olecranon process. Remember that goes into the olecranon fossa of the humerus. Then we have the trochlear notch because it articulates with the trochlea of the humerus. And then we have the coronoid process because that articulates, this part articulates into the capitulum, which is another fossa. And then we have a radial notch of the ulna, and the radius kind of fits into there snugly right there. And then we have the radial or ulnar tuberosity here, which attaches to the radial tuberosity and keeps the bones together. And in between here, we have an interosseous membrane called the syndesmosis, and it'll be connecting these two, the ulnar or radial ulnar ligament. This would be the body of the ulna, and then the styloid process of the ulna, which will always face medially. All right, now let's do some new terminology plus review for the sake of the appendicular skeleton. Number one, a tubercle is a small bony protuberance. Number two, a tuberosity is a speckled porous surface, and it's kind of raised. Number three, a trochanter is a very large bony protuberance, and it's only found in the superior aspect of the femur. We have two of them on each femur. And four, please review anatomical directions and planes, because that makes it so much easier to remember the parts of the bones. I was able to do it in about 1.5 days, the whole skeleton. It's much easier than you think. And always keep in mind the standard anatomical position, because that will help you too. Some considerations for this section. It becomes particularly important to develop your skill to discern left from right bones at this point. A lot of anatomy classes will kind of sneak behind you and they say, oh, this is left or right, and it's particularly difficult if you don't train on your own. And there are some tricks to tell left from right, and I might do videos on that. Learn new terminology and memorize it. So the terminology we had over here, because that helps. And three, by memorizing new terminology, you make it much easier for you to remember different parts of individual bones. as well as the anatomical directions. But anyways, that is the upper appendages, and I hope this got clear this up for you guys. And have a good one. Goodbye.